What's up, Falcons Nation? It's your boy Jew coming at you with another Atlanta Falcons video. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up. In today's video, I want to give you guys some quick Atlanta Falcons news. And then I also want to talk about free agent signings, Erik and Brandon Copeland. But if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you'll know when I've done Atlanta Falcons content. Hit that like button for your boy. I really appreciate each and every one of you guys who have recently subscribed and the ones that continue to tune into the channel. We are currently on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We're about 35 subscribers away from hitting that milestone of 1,000. So I really appreciate you guys continuing to share out my content. If you would like to follow your boy on Twitter, you can follow me at Jew Talk Sports. But with that being said, let's jump right into the video. So first off, in Atlanta Falcons news, Mack, former Atlanta Falcons center, did sign with the San Francisco 49ers. So happy trails to Mack. He was one of my favorite Atlanta Falcons on that offensive line. Mack came over about 4 seasons ago from the Cleveland Browns. He's been a Pro Bowler numerous times when he was with the Cleveland Browns and with our Atlanta Falcons. So shout out to Mack. He did come over in 2016 and help us solidify that offensive line. He helped our Atlanta Falcons get to that Super Bowl in 2016. And he was one of the toughest players on the Atlanta Falcons. A lot of people don't realize that Mack is a guy that played on a broken leg in the Super Bowl. He actually got injured during the NFC Championship game against the Green Bay Packers and broke his leg and actually played in the Super Bowl on a broken leg. So that just shows how great of a player Mack is, how physical and how tough that guy is, how mentally tough he is. So shout outs to Mack. I wish him nothing but the best there in 49er land. He is linking back up with Kyle Shanahan. He signed a 3-year deal with the 49ers. It was just a business decision. I do believe that the Atlanta Falcons did want to bring Mack back, but we just didn't have the cap space to re-sign him. So happy trails to a guy like Mack. We really appreciate everything he did when he was here in Atlanta. Now, in other news, McKinley, former first-round pick for our Atlanta Falcons, did sign with the Cleveland Browns. I'm not too sure the details of how many years he signed for, but I wish him nothing but the best as well with the Cleveland Browns. Last year, after he was cut by our Atlanta Falcons, he actually was on the practice squad of the Las Vegas Raiders. Him and Vic Beasley were both practice squad players for the Las Vegas Raiders last year. So he was able to sign a contract with the Cleveland Browns yesterday. So shout outs to McKinley. Hopefully he can turn his career around and he can get rid of the injury bug. He has been one of those players that's been injury prone pretty much his whole career with those shoulder injuries. So I wish him nothing but the best there in Cleveland. Also in Atlanta Falcons news, I believe it was another player also that recently signed a deal. Keanu Neal, excuse me. Keanu Neal actually signed with the Dallas Cowboys yesterday on a 1-year deal for about $5 million. This doesn't come as a surprise to me, being that Keanu Neal is one of those guys I've been saying since day one when the Falcons decided not to bring him back. I figured that he would end up signing with Dallas because Dan Quinn is the defensive coordinator there in Dallas. Dallas needed another safety. They needed a veteran safety over there in Dallas. So I assumed that he possibly would end up signing with the Dallas Cowboys because it fit a need, and as well as he's really close with Dan Quinn, who drafted him in 2017. So shout outs, or 2016, I believe, but shout outs to Keanu Neal. Keanu Neal is was one of my favorite defensive players in our secondary, just for his toughness. One of the guys that was, to me, that dog on the defensive side of the ball, that hitter, that striker. Guys were scared to come across the middle with a guy like Keanu Neal. He was the enforcer on our defense. And I do think that the Falcons are going to have to replace that toughness on the safety level. I do believe we're going to have to draft a guy to come in and be a playmaker on the defensive side of the ball on that third level. I really feel like the Falcons are going to miss the toughness and the physicality that a player like Keanu Neal played with. He was one of those guys that put fear in wide receivers and tight ends because they knew he was lurking somewhere in that middle of the field, and even able to come down in the run game like a linebacker, like that box safety, and make plays in the backfield on screen plays. We've seen it numerous times last year with Keanu Neal coming down and stopping screen passes, being able to elude offensive linemen and tackle running backs and tackle wide receivers on those quick screens. He also was one of the guys last year we seen who would put big hits on wide receivers that were coming across the middle. So I definitely, wish Keanu Neal nothing but the best. It does really hurt to see one of our best Pro Bowl style players, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because we're short on playmakers. It's really sad to see. I was really sad to see him go, but happy trails to a guy like Keanu Neal. I do believe he's going to have some success there in Dallas. From what I'm hearing, Dallas might try to use him more as a weak side linebacker where he's not in coverage, because he's not one of the better safeties when it comes to coverage. He kind of struggles in coverage, especially after the injuries he had with the torn ACL and the ruptured Achilles. He really struggled in the passing game. He struggled in coverage because he's one of those bigger style safeties, box safeties, and his best attribute was really his ability to make big hits. But shout outs to a guy like Keanu Neal. Like I said, I wish him nothing but the best. From what I hear, he was one of the leaders in the locker room. Not a guy that talked a whole lot, but he was a guy that went out on the field, and he was one of those guys that was a great human being inside the locker room. All of the guys seemed to rally around him. So shout outs to Keanu Neal and happy trails to him. But with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the free agent signings for our Atlanta Falcons. First off, a couple days ago, earlier this week, we signed Erik Harris. He's actually a free safety or a safety because he can play the free safety and strong safety. We came over from the Las Vegas Raiders. Erik Harris is a guy that goes about 6'2", 220 pounds. So he's a solid guy. A lot bigger than a player like Rico Allen, who we also cut earlier this offseason. Rico Allen's about 5'9", 190 pounds. So Erik Harris is a bigger safety. Personally, I prefer my safeties to have a little bit of size on them, whether you're the free safety or strong safety. So I do think that Erik Harris is a veteran that can come in right away and help solidify the back end. I do think that he possibly will be the starter as of game one. He has some familiarity with Terry Fontenot because he did play for the New Orleans Saints for one season. He also played, like I said, with the Las Vegas Raiders as well. But he's a guy that I think that Dean Pease will like. From what I hear, he's an interchangeable safety. He's a guy that can play the strong safety and the free safety. I think he has a little bit more range than a guy like a Ricardo Allen after those injuries. Ricardo Allen actually was one of those safeties that had pretty good range until he had those injuries. When he went down with that Achilles injury a year ago or 2 years ago, it really took away some of his range. And Ricardo Allen has never been one of the bigger guys. He's always been one of the smaller safeties in the game, but it really hurt him when he had that serious injury and kind of lost some of his range and his speed. So I do think that Erik Harris, he's not extremely athletic. He's a decent athlete, but he looks like he seems to be in the right place at the right time. 2 years ago, in a Monday Night Football game against the Chargers, he actually had 2 interceptions returned for touchdowns. He looks like he's very instinctive from what I've seen of his tape, and I really think he'll be a solid safety for our team. I do think he's going to be our free safety unless we go out and draft a guy. But good news is he's a guy that's interchangeable. So if you have somebody that gets injured, he could possibly be one of those guys that's interchangeable that can play the free safety or the strong safety. From what I've seen on his tape, like I said, he's always in the right place at the right time, very opportunistic. It looks like one of his best attributes is his IQ. And as we know, in the offseason, Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith talked about having physical players and having smart players, guys that are not just athletes, but guys that have IQ and that are smart players. And I do think that Erik Harris, this is a good signing for our team. I know a lot of Atlanta Falcons fans don't know who Erik Harris is because he's not one of those splash signings. But I do think that we're going to be able to get a lot out of him. I do think that he's better than a lot of our Atlanta Falcons fans believe he is. I do believe that he will bring some veteran leadership in that defensive back film room. And I've always talked about not wanting to have two, young safeties back there, two guys that are rookies. I do think that the Falcons are going to draft a safety, maybe a Andre Cisco, maybe a Paris Ford out of Pitt, maybe a Richie Grant. I do believe we're going to bring somebody in to play the other safety role, or at least come in and compete for one of the starting safety positions. We also still have Jalen Hawkins, who's another guy that kind of reminds me of a Keanu Neal. Jalen Hawkins is a bigger safety as well, out of the University of Cal. We drafted last year, and he's a guy that really impressed me with the few snaps that he got. I really think the injuries kind of set back Jalen Hawkins last year. He had like a concussion in that Green Bay Packers game, I believe it was. But when he was out on the field playing special teams, and for the few snaps that he did get, starting snaps that he got, when Ricardo Allen went down for a couple games, he actually played really well in a Jalen Hawkins. So I do believe we're going to bring in some more safeties to compete with a guy like Erik Harris. But I think it's always smart to bring in a veteran that can teach some of these young pups the game, can teach them the ropes. And I do think that Erik Harris is going to be a bridge player for our Atlanta Falcons. So if we do draft a safety, I could possibly see the Falcons playing a 3-safety rotation with Erik Harris being one of the starters, and then floating guys in like Jalen Hawkins and whoever we draft. I can see them coming in like an Andre Cisco or even a Trevor Merrick out of TCU. I can see us drafting one of those guys to come in and learn up under Erik Harris and possibly become that starting safety. So you guys just keep your eyes, keep your eyes peeled. I do believe that the draft is going to tell us a lot about this Atlanta Falcons team and where we're headed when it comes to the safety position. But I do like the signing of a guy like Erik Harris, who's a veteran, been around the game, is a guy that seems to always be in the right place at the right time, and is not going to be asked to be, the hero for this defense. He's just going to ask to be one of the 2 safeties, because from what I hear and from what I've seen on tape, Dean Pease is one of those defensive coordinators that likes to use the double high safeties. So he likes to have 2 safeties back. He doesn't play a ton of single high safety like Dan Quinn played with that cover 3 scheme. I think we're going to see a lot more cover 2 and a lot of multiple fronts and multiple looks, possibly out of Dean Pease. So he's going to play to these guys' strengths. I'm not concerned at all about a guy like Erik Harris not being able to live up to the contract because he didn't sign a huge deal with us. I do think that he's going to be a glue guy and a guy that can come in and do his thing. And as you always know, as I state on my channel, as always, I'm not too huge on having a number of playmakers in the secondary if you have a good front 7. I'm mainly about pass rush. I believe that pass rush is paramount. I believe in the draft, we should look at pass rush and address pass rush first, because that's what we really have struggled over the last 3 to 4 years, is being able to get after the passer. I believe you can have just okay safeties, okay cornerbacks. You don't have to have great playmakers at every level. You don't have to have 2 great corners. You don't have to have 2 great safeties. You can just have guys that are serviceable. We've seen in 2016 with a guy like Ricardo Allen, who's never been a Pro Bowl style player. He's just been a guy that was solid. That's what Erik Harris brings to the table. He's a solid safety, a guy that knows his job, does his job well. And I think that that's what the Falcons really have needed over the last couple years, is just somebody that's solid back there on that safety level. Now, I do believe in the draft that we will bring in a playmaker. Maybe, like I said, Andre Cisco or one of the other safeties that can be one of the guys that roams and makes plays on the ball. But I really feel like pass rush is what the Falcons really are struggling with. If we get a consistent pass rush, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year in the Super Bowl, they pretty much gave us the blueprint of how you go and win a Super Bowl. If you build your front seven, you don't need great players on the back end. The secondary of the Buccaneers was very young. Guys like Carlton Davis, Dean on the other side, Jamel Dean at the other cornerback position. The guy Whitehead was their free safety or strong safety. And then they had a rookie in Antoine Winfield Jr., who was their free safety. So, they don't have world beaters on that back end, but they had great pass rush and a great front seven. And I feel like if the Falcons can add a player like a Micah Parsons on the front end, or add a guy like Gregory Rousseau or Jalen Phillips out of Miami, one of those guys in the front end, even a Carlos Basham at that defensive end position, if we can continue to solidify that front seven, we already have two great linebackers, really three great linebackers, and Michael Walker, Deion Jones, and Afoye Oluokun. We have a ton of playmakers on that second level. If we can just solidify that in the trenches, solidify that defensive line, if we can get that defensive line humming, I really think that the Falcons could have a top 10 or top 15 defense under Dean Pease. But also with that being said, I also want to talk about quickly Brandon Copeland. He's another guy that we brought in from the New York Jets, and he played for the New England Patriots as well last season. I like the signing of Brandon Copeland as well. He's a guy that actually is like an outside linebacker / defensive end. He goes about 6'3", 260 pounds. And I like what I've seen from this guy, his tape. He had 5 sacks for the Jets 2 years ago. And last year, I believe he had 1.5 sacks for the New England Patriots. But he's a guy that can be a rotational pass rusher. I really see him being like a Jacob Tuioti-Mariner, being one of those guys that we can use in rotation. He's one of those guys that rushes mainly from a 2-point stance. I didn't see a ton of tape on him with his hand in the dirt because the New England Patriots and the New York Jets both play a 3-4 style defense. And Dean Pease has already said that we're going to play multi-front defense. So we're going to play a 3-4 and a 4-3 up front. But I can really see this guy being in a 2-point stance in the 3-4 setting, a guy that can come off the edge, and a guy who can cover in the flats. But I really think that Dean Pease is going to mainly use him as a pass rusher in a 2-point stance. He'll possibly be lined up on the opposite side of Dante Fowler or on the opposite side of Jacob Tuioti-Mariner. I can see him and Jacob Tuioti-Mariner, splitting snaps possibly. And I like what the Falcons and Terry Fontenot are doing. I like what they're doing in bringing in guys that are glue guys that can come in and play a role. Not guys that are, like I said, these are not splash signings, but these are guys that can come in and play a role. And that's what we need on this team. We need players that come in, that understand their role, and that come in and play their role. And I see this signing with Brandon Copeland, I do see him coming in and possibly filling the role of an edge rusher. And I believe the Falcons are going to bring in a couple more edge rushers in the draft so we can have a rotation of about 5 or 6 guys you rotate in and out of the game. With Marlon Davidson still being here, with a guy like John Kaminsky still being here, I could see those guys being the rushers that put their hand in the dirt. A John Kaminsky, a Marlon Davidson, I can see those guys being like in the 4-3 front. I can see those guys being the guys that we use as the defensive ends. But then in the 3-4 look, where we switch it up, I can see Brandon Copeland maybe being on the outside in the 2-point stance, the Dante Fowlers, even the Michael Walker. He also has the skill set to be able to come off the edge as well on that 2-point stance. So I like what we're doing in building depth. I really feel like over the last couple seasons, Dan Quinn and the coaching staff, Jeff Ulbrich, I don't think they did a good job of rotating guys in. To me, last year, I didn't see John Kaminsky get enough snaps. I don't believe a guy like Charles Harris got a fair shake when he was here in Atlanta last year. I didn't see him a ton. He got some minutes early, but it seemed like as the year wore on, they continued to play the same guys and they stopped rotating guys in. They stuck with guys like Steven Means and Jacob Tuioti Mariner on the edges, and they stuck with Grady Jarrett and pretty much the same old. We didn't see guys get opportunities, and I really feel like that's been the biggest issue with the coaching staff within the last couple seasons is they have done a poor job of taking advantage of fresh bodies. You have to keep these guys fresh during the games. It's very important with the NFL. I believe that's another reason we've seen a lot of guys getting injured is because we weren't rotating guys in and out. Grady Jarrett pretty much plays 90% of the snaps. And a lot of the guys that we had Vic Beasley. He was a guy that played a lot of snaps, and we didn't do a good job of rotating guys in and out. And I do think in 2016, that was one of the biggest differences I noticed is in 2016, we did a good job of keeping guys fresh and rotating defensive linemen in and out. We had guys that was on the secondary, rotational guys like Adrian Claiborne, guys like Brooks Reed that we would bring off the bench, guys like Courtney Upshaw. We had guys that we can rotate in and out to go along with the Dwight Freeneys, to go along with the Vic Beasleys. We had guys that we could rotate in and out and keep those guys fresh. And I feel like over the last couple years, we kind of just relied on Vic Beasley and we kind of relied on Pat McKinley, who was always injured, and they didn't give guys opportunities like Deidre Sanat. We had guys that were not even dressing for games. So I really think that the signings of Copeland, the signings of Erik Harris, and some of these guys that we're bringing in, I know a lot of people are like, these are not splash signings, but I do think that these guys are going to come in and have some success, being that they are guys that understand how to come in and fill a role. And Dean Pease will know how to use these guys to the best of their abilities. But with that being said, you guys let me know what you think of the video. I really appreciate you guys. Like I said, continuing to tune in. Definitely hit that subscribe button for your boy. I have a lot more content coming for you guys. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up. Peace.